So if you try to go for leg locks, and this allows me to pummel my legs out, go into side control and so on. So then I high step here, and then I just limp arm, and then we can go into our body lock passing. Alan tries to pull the arm out. It should be very hard. What I do is I extend his leg and I walk my hips around. And now all we'll do is just pummel from here. Alright, so 3, 2, 1. We're going to work on some body lock passing. Before we go into it, we're just going to do some little drills when we get into trouble. So the first one is basically dealing with the shoulder crunch. I suppose we'll talk about prevention first. So if I just take my arm out, so ideally like either having my hands locked, or if I'm doing open body lock passing, keeping weight on my forearm and my hands, and closing my shoulder down towards his rib cage is really important. If my shoulder kind of drifts away from his rib cage, it means that Alan's able to punch an underhook. Then he's able to start pulling this up towards the shoulder for like shoulder crunches, where he can go into sweeps, arm bars, and everything else. So we just do that one more time. So when he's in like a seated guard, I'm going to go with like either a flat hand around the back or locked hands. But whichever one I decide to use, I'm going to put all the weight on the hand, and then I close that arm with my shoulder on my training partner's stomach. So if you try to get the underhook now, Alan, it should be a lot harder, right? And allow me to stay in this position a little bit longer. So you kind of run into problems here if this shoulder doesn't connect down to the sternum. So if you punch an underhook, you can see that he's able to pull the arm up onto his shoulder. So if Alan does get the shoulder crunch, a common mistake that people do is they turn and try to run away from the problem. And this just extends my arm and allows Alan to go into like arm bars and follow-up triangles and everything else. So instead of running away from it, let's run towards it. So I want to get my head as close as I can to Alan, and I'm going to put weight in my hands. So if you try to go for Alan, so I just get my hands as close as I can to his head, and if you try to go for it now, it should be a lot harder. Best case scenario, I'm able to like pull my hand out. If Alan has a really tight shoulder crunch, what we're going to do is keep our knees pinched. So I'm turning my knees inwards to make it hard for him to follow up, say with leg lock attacks, and now what we'll do is just pummel from here. Alright, so the knee position is really important, so we'll go one more time. So instead of running away, where I'm going to go into shoulder crunch, put my hands on the floor and walk my hands up towards his head here. If I just leave my legs kind of like out random, if Alan finds he's not able to get the shoulder crunch, he'll just shoot in on leg locks here. Alright, so it's important that we try to shut down the follow-up attacks as well. So if you look at my knee position, my knees are pinched inwards here. So if you try to go for leg locks, and this allows me to pummel my legs out, go into side control and so on. So that'll be our first drill. So 3, 2, 1. Alan gets the shoulder crunch. I put weight on my right hand and then eventually my left hand, and I want to get my head over his head. So we're basically doing like a float style passing to counter the shoulder crunch. If I stay in this middle ground, it means that Alan has good elbow position where now he can go into the shoulder crunch sweep here. And if I bring my head too far away from Alan's, it means this extends my arm, and now we're in danger of like arm bars and so on. So one of the best things here to do is put weight in your right hand, left hand, head over his head. If I can rotate my thumb up towards the ceiling and pull my arm free, great. If not, and he just has a really good bite on the arm, keep walking these legs up nice and high, and I'm pinching my knees inwards. So using our float style passing, I have two main choices. I keep the knee pinched, and then I bring my head forward, and then I'm able to just get like my laces to Alan's laces, and then just extend his legs and go hip to hip where we can go into side control and so on. Or if I want more, maybe like a dynamic type movement, pinch the knee inwards, and I'm just going to like high step with my right leg. I'm going to turn Alan's hips over towards my right hand side with my left knee. So left knee turns his hips in the opposite direction, then I high step here, and I replace my left hip with my right hip, and then we can start working from here. Alright, so 3, 2, 1. Tries to like leg press and sit up and try to go into maybe different types of sweeps, like shoulder crunch sweep and so on. I have an opportunity here, a small window, to basically like bring my hand outside the line of his shoulder and the line of his elbow, and I'm going to bring his elbow in towards his hip, and I go with like say a flat hand on his back, and I keep all the weight on it. So like we were saying in the beginning, I want to keep my shoulder on his stomach and that puts more weight in my hand and protects my arm. So if Alan tries to pull the arm out, it should be very hard. What I'm thinking about doing as well is his left shoulder, so that's his far shoulder, I want to keep that flat on the mat. If that shoulder comes off the mat, it means that it's easier for him to bring me back to the shoulder crunch. So think about keeping the shoulder pinned on the side of the arm that's been attacked. So Alan sits up, here, hand goes out, thumb goes in towards the training partner's back, flat hand, I keep weight in my hand and I drop my right shoulder into his sternum. If Alan tries to move his left shoulder off the mat, I just walk to that side and keep weight on it. So the next thing that we want to do here is deal with this frame underneath our neck. So we just basically go with a thumb pose, push his elbow away, and I get my head underneath. So we're going to go into a hip switch. So I feed Alan's left leg over towards my left leg by sliding it across the center, kicking my left leg back, and once we come into this position, we're in a great position to finish the pass. So I'm going to use my left hand to basically get a grip on his laces. I extend his leg, drop my hip inside, elbow goes to the far hip. Now the arm that was being attacked now turns into a crossface. All right, so it's a really good way of like countering the shoulder crunch and then like passing off it. So we'll do one more time. So maybe Alan sits up, trying to go for a sweep, hand goes out, flat hand, took his elbow in towards his hip, and I keep both shoulders on the floor. My shoulder goes into his belly button. I deal with this elbow that's underneath my chin by pummeling my head inside and using a thumb post on his elbow. I drag Alan's left leg over towards my left leg by using my right knee. Here, I extend my left leg back, we go 2 knees on 1 shin, left hand comes inside, and I just put the sole of his foot towards his butt. What I do is I extend his leg and I walk my hips around. Left elbow to his far hip, and then we go into a crossface and we can start working from side control. All right, so that's our last one. So 3, 2, 1. I'll run through them really quick with Alan. So 3 main options here, right? So obviously number 1 is try not get caught in the shoulder crunch by like good prevention. So keeping weight on your right hand and then using the shoulder in the sternum to make it hard for him to punch an underhook. If your training partner does get the shoulder crunch, one option is to put weight on the right hand and on the left hand, and all we do is rotate our thumb towards the ceiling, and then I just limp arm, and then we can go into our Bodylock Passing. Second option was maybe the limp arm, same setup, the limp arm wasn't a possibility, so we go into our float style passing. So we're putting weight in our hands head over head, and I'll go into like a hip switch or a leg pummel, so whichever you prefer, and then we can counter that way. The last one was when Alan goes into a seated position off the shoulder crunch, hand goes out, and then my hand goes underneath my training partner's back. I keep weight on the stomach using my shoulder. We go into our hip switch, use our free hand to extend our training partner's leg. That allows us to get our left hip inside his hip, and then we're ready to start attacking from side control.